the first kind of like question I want to throw out is we have a lot of early stage founders watching this. Some have maybe already raised some funding. Some are still at the stages where they're building or looking for their team or trying to get product market fit and or trying to get their first clients and whatnot. And we can, I think it might be good to have Josh start too, but I'd love to get all three of your perspectives on what do you guys look for and what have you noticed that separate the good startups from the not so good ones, or the ones that continue on to go through later rounds of funding and actually turn a profit and or kind of run the gamut of not failing within the first 3 years or whatever, right? Are there any things that you guys specifically look for? And Josh, yours is a little bit different, but what I guess would be, what do you look for with the startups that you guys help get funding? What are the key things that you've noticed that get them the funding from the government? And then for Samara and Shuo, are there any traits that you guys see in founders or early stage startups that you look for to make investments in?
Sure. So I mean, it touches upon what you could call it the investment thesis, quote unquote, of the U.S. federal government and like what they're looking for. And like I said, there are 26 different agencies, so it's difficult to narrow it down in one. I hate the word thesis. Why are we using this word? But let's say call it a thesis, right? I don't know, it draws me back to college, and I'm like, the dream, the recurring dream I still have. I'm 36 years old. I'm waking up and still thinking I have a test tomorrow and I didn't study. I don't know if anybody else has ever had that, but anyways, okay, let's say it's a thesis. So the investment thesis of the U.S. federal government is quote unquote unified, though obviously it's tailored based on the type of tech that they're looking for. And it's really 4 stages. One is either deep tech or dual use. And the other way to think of this is either it's innovation or application, right? So you have to have deep tech, or in other words, it's truly innovative pioneer technology, but that's not enough, because if the application is weak, then it doesn't matter how deep it is, it's probably not going to get funded. The other thing, which is, this touches on what Samara said, it has to be, the team has to be strong, because if the federal government is looking at a couple founders that have a great idea, but they have no background of being successful, or they don't have a patent under their name, they don't have the right letters at the end of their name, they're not a master's in engineering or whatever needed here, or they don't have a history of getting it done, then the federal government will look at that team less favorably than another team. So it just means that makes the need for great tech to be even stronger. The third is market viability. I know this sounds a little bit strange, because we talked about one of the applications that the federal government is looking whether or not they can become a customer, but the federal government knows that maybe it won't become a customer. And if that's the case, they don't want the money to go down the drain. They want you to build something which is going to have a strong market. So market viability and understanding of your market is a very big indicator of whether or not a company is going to get funded or not. And the fourth is whether or not the tech is relevant to the particular agency itself. So if you're touching on a pain point or something that they can understand a real need for, then the chance of getting funded is that much higher. I just want to touch on for a second, because I understand I'm using a term that maybe some people here are not familiar with, the word dual use. Dual use technologies. Samara and Shuo, are you guys familiar with that concept, dual use? Yeah?
I am not. I can guess though. Does that mean both men and women can use it?
No, that's just called technology.
Oh, okay.
Right. But no, dual use technology means that the market is both the third market, which is like the federal government itself. In other words, you have some technology which might apply to the Department of Defense's logistics agency, right? It's, let's say, predictive analytics, and it's got all vehicles in the Department of Defense, which, let's say there are 300,000 vehicles in the Army alone. then the predictive analysis analytics would provide a tremendous solution. But then in the private sector, it's obvious that that also has an application. So the federal government makes an investment because they see themselves as a potential user of your technology, but they also understand that while they promoted your R&D with a couple $1 million in funding, they also propelled your commercial products. So when we talk about dual use, that's the implication here of whether or not your product could be relevant in two markets simultaneously. And that's it. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. We also had a question, and I'd love to get Samara and Shuo, your thoughts too on what you look for in startups to make investments. And then we have a question here that I think is relevant. I'll get to this right after you guys respond with what you're kind of looking for in startups.
Yeah, I'll pop in here. So, I mean, this sounds pretty basic, but I just see it go wrong so often. So one sort of fundamental question is, are you raising the right amount of money? And are you going to have the money that you need to hit the next milestone? This is especially relevant, again, when you're in the really early stage, because running out of cash is what's going to most likely kill you in the early days. I mean, you're going to go through a lot of pivots. You're going to hire people, change the company a lot. But when you're out of cash, you're out of cash. So one of the things I really look for is a founder that's done their best to plan out and think about both how much they're raising, how much they're going to need, and what sort of a strategy is for hitting the, in our case, when we invest the seed, the Series A milestones. And I'm not talking about having really clear projections in some Excel files. For us, that's a lot less important. We just basically know it's wrong if you're doing all that work really early, but some sense of like, this is the money that we need to grow our team with these people, and hit these milestones that are going to be the ones that they've correctly identified as the right milestones for their next raise. Or if it's not a raise, then for their whatever crucial amount of ARR that they're going to need to grow to the next level. So that's one piece, is just the funding. And then the other thing that's really important, I mentioned people and team. I think culture, it's never too early to really be thoughtful about what kind of company culture you're creating. So that's something that I know at Hyperplane, we always ask about. We think it's really awesome when we don't have to ask about it, because it's so clear that the founders thought about it and they just, it's right up there at the beginning of their pitch. Your first 10 or so employees are going to set the culture for your company, and that's pretty sticky. So are you being deliberate about it? Are you being thoughtful about the kind of company that you're trying to build, that you really want to build a company? And then the other piece, of course, is just on the actual technology itself and your business model. Is it the right time for what you're doing? Especially in deep tech, I think a lot of the criticism, a lot of the reasons why firms pass on deep tech companies is that they just think it sounds like a science project. This is something, some of the traditional examples are in blockchain, AR, VR. For me right now, it's brain machine interfaces, that there's just not yet a real market or use case for it. And you as a very early stage startup, you're going to run out of capital before it's anything more, it's commercialized, before it's really a product. So I think having a clear idea of like, yes, we're working on hard tech. Yes, this is new and innovative, but we have a short-term strategy for how we can bring this to market. Is something that's important. I think, one thing is it's never too early to think about your sales strategy. And I think when a founder can show that they have the deep tech background, but also that they know how to at least think about bringing in talent on the sales team and sort of growing a business, that's something that is actually pretty rare in this industry, and really, makes a founder backable.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Shuo, I'd love to get your thoughts on what you're looking for with startups that you invest in.
Yeah, for us, we definitely over-index on the founder, the team. When you're talking about an early stage startup, you're talking about a situation where there's oftentimes more questions than answers. There's more potential energy than kinetic energy at first, right? And so many things can change. Your business model can change, the team members can change, how you approach the market could change, but the founders largely stay the same, and they're the ones building that DNA into really every aspect of the business. And so, for us, making sure that the founding team has that, mission driven focus and that drive to be overcomers, right? Essentially, if you're a startup founder, your job is to overcome obstacles every single day, right? There's no scenario that I knew about that, people just slide down a slide and everything, goes very, very easily. And so is this the kind of team that can fundamentally face and overcome some of the challenges that'll come up? That's the most important thing for us.